Hi everyone, welcome to an assignment where you are going to outline your study phase section. Now your study phase section is going to be, it takes a hefty chunk of your chapter 4 and it's a really important section. It's probably the section that people are most interested in reading or hearing about. They're interested in what you did, so they're interested in your do phase, but they're going to be very interested in your study phase, what did you find? What are your findings? Did it work? Did it not work? How did it work? Etc. Now, in all of my work, and maybe I should say in all of my time of working with graduate students who are writing up kind of like a big research project, a big research report, like a dissertation, the study phase often takes a good chunk of time because there's a lot of thinking and a lot of analysis that is still happening as you're writing things up. You will feel that writing up your study phase is a little different than writing up your do phase. Your do phase, it can be a little easy to narrate what you did, but when we jump into the study section, we get less, we will be descriptive, but if the do phase is just descriptive and narrative and what you did, kind of the storytelling aspect of it, the study phase, you're going to have to pull in a little bit more of your analytical thinking skills and a little bit more of your evaluative thinking skills. So there's a little bit of a tone shift. Now, the best, trust me when I say that students have a cleaner and smoother experience of analyzing their data when we break it up step by step and you start with outlining. So this assignment is going to be super important for you to gather your thoughts and gather your analyses, gather your findings, and start thinking about how are you going to talk about these findings in your report, in your dissertation, and you're going to be jotting down thoughts, outlining. You're not writing paragraphs. You're not telling the story of your analysis. You're just outlining. So true outlining form. This is also a time where a lot of this week, if you haven't done so already, you've been prompted to start analyzing your data and creating your visuals, like the visual displays, the data displays, whether they're tables or graphs or charts or some other visual. You've been prompted already. So hopefully you've been working on them and you've been drafting them, but this is the week that you need to really get them together. You're going to finalize them. Now, you'll submit them for feedback, of course, but make sure that your visuals are as clean and as comprehensive as they need to be. That takes a lot of time. And so although it might seem like, okay, I'm just outlining this week, trust me when I say reserve time to dig into your visuals and your data displays. Utilize whatever resources, whatever software you have available to you. Utilize AI's help and coaching of maybe the formulas that you may use. Everything that you need to use, you can definitely do with Excel and you can do with Google Sheets. You just need to utilize some good AI prompting to figure out what those exact formulas are. Our philosophy here is you don't need to memorize all of your formulas for Excel. There are lots of tutorials out there for you, and AI is also out there to help with some of that. So in this outline, make sure that you have a few things handy. You for sure have your Chapter 4 guidebook. So you will not be able to do this outline unless you're looking at your Chapter 4 guidebook. Your Chapter 4 guidebook, specifically your study phase section, obviously has a lot of additional coaching and tips for what to include in each of these sections and to utilize the framework that we're using here of what, so what, now what. So make sure your Chapter 4 guidebook is handy. Download the template for this outline. It is required that you use the template. And so the template has a few different prompts, like what data are you using for this finding? Copy and paste your visual in there, let's see your visual. Make sure that everything's labeled. Make sure that your axes, if you've got graphs, that they're consistent. Make sure that it's readable. If you're using quotes, what quotes are you planning to use? A table of quotes could be helpful, etc. And then your notes of what is the what? What is your finding? And that should have a little bit of interpretation to it of what does this mean? The so what is establishing additional kind of meaning to it and why it's important or why it's meaningful, what it's signaling. And then you have your now what, this kind of brief little moment to think, well, what does this mean as you go into your act phase? What does this mean? What do you need to communicate in your act phase? So I will say, make sure, and your Chapter 4 guidebook does this, but you're keeping your questions of what, so what, and now what, really close just to your project. You're not zooming way out and talking about connections to literature and other discussions that are happening out there. You'll do that in chapter 5. You have a little bit more of a bigger, like, so what type of question later on in chapter 5, but just keep your what, so what, and now what really close to this one change idea, okay? Don't zoom out and start getting too big. Like, just keep those questions answering specific to your change idea. All right, good luck with this outline. You'll get some feedback, and then it will be a lot easier to write and to get started writing once you have your outline complete. All right, good luck.